Hello, I'm Mark, and welcome back to part 2 of my Unreal Engine tutorial on how to make a scalable camera-based interaction system for your Unreal Engine games. So let's do a quick little recap of what we did in part 1. So first off, if you were trying to compile the code, if you're coming back from part 1 and you were trying to compile the code and you were having some linker issues, that was because we forgot to add the game frameworks character.h and the draw debugger help .h files to our core player component implementation file. So I apologize for that, but if you add those two includes in there and recompile, it should all recompile and all the errors should go away. So let's go into what we were doing in part 1. And the first thing we did was create our interaction data, which is our data transfer object. And this is an object that will transfer data between the actor that we're looking at through the player player interaction component right here, and output it into our user widget so it can display that information on the screen to the user. Then we created our core two interfaces. Our first one is our core interactable, and this is an interface that will reside on any actor that we wish to interact with. And then we created our core character interactions interface, and this is really a utilities interface that we will be adding to the character class in part 3 so that it can then use the core player component interaction component. And we did this so that we could decouple this component from the actual character class itself. And then after that, we went and had to make a couple of changes to our build CS file so that we can use the blueprint widgets. So here we have UMG, Slate, and Slate Core. We just added that as a second line. And then from there, we went ahead and created our custom core interaction user widget, which is inheriting from user widgets. And then finally, we went and defined our player interaction component. So that's what we did in part 1. So part 2 is all going to be about widgets. And so we're going to go ahead and create all the components we need to build out our widget, which will be displaying on the UI. And so let me just bring back the demo solution that I had. And so what that is that, so whenever we're looking at a chair and you can see the information coming back, we will be building all of the components, all the UI components needed to display that information on there. And then once again in part 3, we'll then take all of these components and then tie them into our player character and build out this little set so we can test out our interaction system. So I'm just going to go pause that and move that over. So the first component we're going to build is the data table. So as you can see in that UI, we had some labels, and I want to have the ability to customize what those labels are based on what we're looking at. And so to do that, I'm going to use a data table and link that through the for a data table. So first off, so we can create a data table in 2 ways. Since our C++ code isn't going to be referencing that data table, what we can do is we can go ahead and define our table purely in Blueprint script, or we can do it in C++. I'm going to go ahead and do it in both to show you how you can create that table structure both in C++ as well as purely in the editor. So to do it in C++, I'm just going to go and bring up my solution. Come to the content drawer, go to C++, come down our folder structure, go into the public folder, right click and say new class. I'm going to say none. This is the same way we built our data transfer object. And then I'm going to hit next, and then we're going to go ahead and give it a name. So I'm just going to go find that name right here, and I'm calling it core interaction widget row, and I put the row here, that way I know that this object is actually going to be for a table structure. And then I'm going to go ahead and create class, and we'll let Unreal Engine and Visual Studio do their thing. Hopefully we'll get a good compile, no errors. Yep, good compile, no errors. Let's come back into the solution. And it's waiting to do its thing. All right, so here's our structure. So what we've done is we've created a class, and we need to turn this class into a struct. So to do that, and specifically a table struct. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the engine datatable.h file. I'm going to do that there. And then also, since I'm going to turn this into an Unreal Engine struct, we're going to go ahead and put the include file. So this is just really the name of the class .generate.h. So this is not going to be a class, this is going to be a struct. So I'm going to rename that to struct, and Unreal Engine, all structs in Unreal Engine start with the prefix of F. And then to make sure that this struct is visible, I'm also going to add the struct blueprint type there. And then finally, I'm also going to add the generate body, and I'm going to put that there. And go F and F. So since we've gone ahead and changed this and changed the name, and finally, since this is a data, we want this to work with data tables, I also need to go ahead and let this inherit from the data table row base class. So once that's done, this struct can now be used in the context of a data table. So now I'm just going to come over to here. I'm just going to go ahead and just fix this real quick. Type F, 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 F. So that's the constructor and the deconstructor done. Hit save. That should be good. All right. So now we're ready to add some attributes to this. So first off, I'm going to use another enum. And I'm just going to add this up here, since this enum is going to be used in the context of this table. So this enum is really going to be, this is going to help drive the widget creation, or the widget configuration, I should say. So I have tap only, hold only, and both. So on tap only, and this, so if this widget only supports tap, it'll show the tap. If it supports hold, it'll support hold, and if it does both, it'll do both. And so the way we're going to configure that is we're just going to add our enumerator down here, and this will be by type as byte, enumeration action. This is the action type, and I'm just going to default this to tap only. And then the two properties in this table are going to be our fText, which is our tap text, tap action text, and our hold action text, and that's there. And those are the only objects that we're going to need for this table structure. So I'm going to hit save, and let's just go ahead and compile this. All right, so that's how we can create a table structure in C++. So let's go ahead and create this table structure again, but in blueprints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create some folders for organizational. So I'm just going to call this UI. And then under UI, I'm just going to go create another folder called interactions. Why not? And I'm going to open that up. So to recreate what we did in C++ in blueprints, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need that enumerator. So right click, come to blueprints. We're going to go down under blueprints. There's the enumerator. We're going to click on that. I'm going to call this E. I'm going to give it a unique name, eWidget type. And that's going to pop up. I'm going to drag that over here. So this is how we can create enumerators in blueprints. So all we need to do is I'm going to add 3 in here. Let me pop up the other solution real quick. So we have, if we're just going to recreate the other one, we can add tap only. going to have hold only, and then the last one is going to be both. Alright, and that's how you create an enumerator. Then after that, we're going to want to create a structure. So to do that, again, right click, come to blueprints, and here we are, struct. Click on that. I'm going to call this f underscore, and we'll call this row. And then I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. And as you can see, we've got members, variables. So the first one here is just going to be our enumerator. So this will be the action type. So I'm just going to rename this action type. And we want this to use our enumerator. So there it is. Widget type is our enumerator. And then we can just add the other two variables, which is going to be tap action text and hold action text. And these are just going to be texts. So we'll just set those to texts. And that's how you can just recreate that C++ table structure here in Unreal Engine. Just using blueprints. So once we have those two structures defined, I'm just going to go close that. Then we can go ahead and create our table. So I'm going to right click, and to create a data table, we just right click, we come down to miscellaneous, and we say data table. And if I go here, you should be able to see, there it is, F interaction widget row, which is our blueprint right here. And then we have the core interaction widget row, which is our C++. I'm going to go ahead and use the C++ version, but if you want to go ahead and if you want to use the script one, go for it. It's up to you. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm just going to call this widget interaction strings, and we're just going to open this up. So this is going to create our strings table, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a row. So you just come up here, add row, and we're just going to use two rows. I'm going to have the use. So this is our action key. This is our primary key. So this is the action key, and just FYI, I like to keep these all lowercase. And the reason why is because when I compiled, I had, when I was using uppercase and lowercase, when I went and compiled it for a distribution build, somehow it didn't like the uppercase, lowercase, and it converted everything to lowercase on the build, and suddenly my data tables didn't work. So I had to go back, make everything lowercase, recompiled, rebuilt, and suddenly it all worked. So lesson learned from me, and tip to you, just keep everything lowercase and everything should be okay when going from the editor to the to an actual release build. So this is going to be use, tap only. I think we were using hold, so I'm going to set that to hold, and then we're just going to go and say to use. We could actually make another one called sit. Let's say add, right, and sit, and we'll keep that tap only. Now, we're not going to actually build this sit interaction in this solution. I'm just going to go ahead and just put all the plumbing in there. But if you've got a montage that you want to play on the actor, that has them sit in the chair, go for it. And then the other one is going to be pick up or take. And this one is going to be a double action. So and that will put it into our fictitious inventory, and this will be to move. All right, and so that's our strings table. So that's the widget action interaction strings. We've got that up. We'll just keep that there for now. And now let's go ahead and start building out all of our widgets components. So actually the first thing I think I'm going to build is to build the HUD widget. So I'm going to move up to the UI and build that HUD. So the HUD is really easy. We're just going to right click, come to user interface, go to widget blueprints. This is just going to be a straight user widget. I'm going to say WB underscore HUD, and we'll just open that up. So for the HUD widget, for this one, we're just going to use a canvas panel. There's our canvas panel. I'm just going to drag and drop it there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and use a border for the center point. And I'm going to place that there. I'm going to set our X and Y on the border to 5 and 5. And I'm just going to set the anchors Shift and then Control so that that point is right square and center in the middle of the in the middle of the camera. So the camera is going to take up the whole screen size, and that's where the center of the camera is. So that's where our ray tracing is going to come out. That's where our line trace is going to come out. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. So that's our HUD. Real simple. We don't need to do anything else. It's purely there for cosmetic purposes. Next, we're going to go ahead and create the default interaction widget. So to do that, I'm going to come to user interface. I'm going to go into the interactions folder. Let's just keep this organized. Go to user interface, go to widget blueprints, pop that open. And again, this is going to be going to minimize that. This is going to be a regular user widget. And this will be so this is going to be the default if there are no specialized widgets being created. So from here, I'm just going to open this up, save. So to create the default widget, first off, I'm going to need a size box, and I'm going to drag that size box down to here. And we're going to use a width override and a height override, and those variables are going to be 400 for this demo and 45. Compile, save, and that's that. I'm just going to go say desired on screen. So there it is. So that's the actual what it's going to look like on the screen. All right, hit compile. All right, so let's put some contents in there. So the first thing I'm going to do to add in there is going to be a canvas panel. And then on the canvas panel, I'm going to go ahead and add a background blur. So we can go ahead and blur out the background behind it. And we're just going to go ahead, just manually size this background blur to the size of that. So actually, we'll just make this 400 by 45, and that should size it well. And I'm going to set the blur strength to 5. I think that's a good enough blur strength. All right, after we've got the blur, next thing we're going to add to the canvas panel is going to be a horizontal box. So this is going to now define the structure. So that can be done through a horizontal box. I'm going to add that to the canvas panel. And the horizontal box is going to be sitting on the other side. So I'm going to go to anchors, and I'm going to say shift. Actually, there we are, and control. So there we go. So there's the anchor. So shift and control is aligned on the upper right side of the control. And then within the horizontal box, I'm going to then add a vertical box. And then within the vertical box, we're going to add 3 things. I'm going to add a text. And this text block is going to be a, well, let's go ahead and just define this. So we're going to keep this text block, actually, let's just make sure I get the vertical box all sized up first. So within the vertical box, I'm going to make this center aligned, and I'm going to make this center vertical aligned. It's set to autofill. Again, we're working in the vertical box. Tooltip, no. Just make sure we got everything set up here. Okay, I think that's good. That's the only setup we need to do in the vertical box. So in the text block, we're going to go ahead and change this to actually vertical box. Yep, no autofill. So text block, I'm going to change this to txt tap, and we'll make this a variable since we're going to be populating this from the event graph. Color is black. That looks good. Text block. I'm going to call this tap action. And I'm going to come down to font, and I'm going to change the font to 14. And I think that's all I need to do there. Just double check against my other solution real quick. Bold 14. Looks good. That looks good. Is there anything on justification? No, justification's fine. Okay, I think that should do it. So then the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a spacer. So I'm going to drag a spacer into the vertical box, and I'm going to set this spacer. Let me just pull this up. And we'll keep actually the spacer size, we can just keep that as a default of 1. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just duplicate this and move it, and move the spacer in between. And I'm just going to change this from tap to hold. That way we can keep all the variables the same. All right. So we have tap action, and we'll just change this to hold, that we know what it is. Okay, I'm going to hit compile, save. Vertical box, is there anything else I had in the vertical box behavior? Nope. All right, so next is back to the horizontal box, and within the horizontal box I'm going to put another spacer. And then I'm going to add another text. And we need to make sure this text is in the horizontal box and not the vertical box. And this is going to be our E key. So we can keep this 24. I'm just going to go ahead. For formatting, again, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. All right, so where? All right, let me check the horizontal position of the box. 0, 0. Oh, there it is. Size the content. So what this does is it just is going to go and automatically size my horizontal box to the content within there, and that just goes ahead and fixes that. So now all of our content is going to be in our horizontal box. Our horizontal box looks to be sized. Could probably make this a little bit bigger, but for now we'll just keep that there. And I think I'm going to put a little bit more spacing in there, so I'm just going to come down to size, and within here, let's see, let's set the X to 5. Alright, that pushes that out a little bit, gives us a little bit of spacing there. Alright, and so that should do it for all of the layout for our default. So let's go ahead to the graph. So within the graph, we need to do a couple of little things to set things for setup. So we don't need event construct and tick, so I'm just going to take those away. What we do need is 2 variables, and these are going to be font variables. So the first one is going to be, I'm going to call this only mode font. And I'm going to set this to use a slate font info variable. And from here, I'm just going to go ahead, and then I'm just going to go ahead and create a second variable, and will be a slate font variable, and this one will be both. And that's our both mode font. Gonna hit compile, save. So if we go up to only mode and we come down into the settings, right, I'm gonna open this. I'm just gonna close that. And here we're gonna go ahead and just define what these variables are. So the font family is gonna be Roboto. We want to keep it bold, and if it's only, we'll keep it at size 24. And then on both, we'll just open this up. Again, it's going to be Roboto, it'll be bold, but here I'm going to change the size to 14. So 1, 4. And so this will rescale the size. And so if I was to bring my solution back over again and fire it up, so that's our 24. So if it's only one or the other, right, it's going to be big. It's going to, but if it's both, then we need to resize it so it fits in that box around the E key. Okay. All right, so that's that. I'm just going to go ahead and stop that, bring this back over. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this widget to start adding some functionality to our widget. So actually, we don't need the pre-construct either for this one, so I'm just going to go take those away. So the first thing that we need to do, or I'm going to do, is I'm going to create this reset, a little helper, custom event helper. So this will be the I'm going to call this custom add custom event, and this will be the reset. This will be my reset UI event. And when we reset the UI, I'm just going to go grab this. I'm going to say get, and I'm going to go grab this and say get. And part of the reset will say set visibility, and we want the function. And I'm going to set this to collapse. And also I'm going to go ahead and say set font. And we want to use this one here, the function. And I'm going to go ahead and drag out our font variable here. So I'm going to say get, and we'll just drag you into there. And then we'll do the same thing for hold as well. So I'm just going to drag you, set visibility, connect. And I'm going to say collapse, and then again we'll say set font, and then I'm just going to say copy paste, and we're using this both mode font variable. All right, so that's it for the reset UI. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build the set interaction action, which will be called from the parent widget. So this will be another custom event. And again, I'm going to call this, we'll call this set. And this one is actually going to take in a input. So that input is going to be our row. And I'm just going to go ahead and find our row. So since I'm going to be using C++, my table is built using the C++, I need to make sure that this is using the C++. So I'm going to be using core widget row. But if you're using the, if you're going to be using the do it all in script, then it would be, you'd be using the, where is it? Yeah, interaction widget row, which is right there. So core interaction widget row, and there's our input. So the first thing I'm going to be doing on any set is to go ahead and run the reset. So let's run the reset UI to make sure everything is back to the original factory configuration before we go ahead and make our changes. And then after that, I'm just going to pull this off and we'll just say break. All right, so first thing we're going to do on the break is we're going to create a switch. So this is going to drive the configuration. So we have tap only, hold only, and tap and hold. And I'm just going to move this down a little bit. So on tap, we just need to grab our tap text. And we're going to do two things. We're going to set the text. And we're also going to set the font. And yeah, so we're going to be setting our font to use our only font mode. So that's going to go into there. On tap, on tap. I'm just going to move you there. And then I'm just going to go and connect the text there. Just going to put that there for now. And then once this is done, we're just going to go ahead and make sure we set our visibility, because right now it's in the collapsed form. So we'll say, so we want to call set visibility function, connect that to that, and our visibility is going to be no hit, testable, self and children. And I'm just going to put a little reroute node there just to kind of clean things up a little bit. Compile, save. So that's what we're going to do for tap only. So then hold only is very similar. We're just going to use it on the hold text. So again, I've got hold. I'm just going to go drag. I'm going to say set text. Let's move that there. Oops. And we're also going to do the font. And again, we'll be also set our visibility. And again, same. Third one down, there it is, and we'll just hook all that into there. So we'll just stretch this out a little bit so you can see there's the only mode font. Yeah, it's a little messy with the wires getting crossed. Put a reroute node there. All right, and that's what we're going to do for the onlys. So for when we, and oh yeah, we need to hook this in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull this off, and I'm going to say I'm going to actually do a little bit of text formatting here. So I'm going to run the text format. And here I'm going to say hold. I'm going to put 2 curly braces. And I'm going to add hold. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to say put the hold text in. So what this is going to do is it's going to append the hold text in front of the string that's coming back. And that's how I'm going to do it for this. And I'll just put that there, hit compile, save, and then next is, so then next we're just going to go and do the same thing, but we're going to do it for both hold and tap. So to do that, we're just going to go ahead and take the tap, and I'm just going to say get hold. Now, since we're resetting, we're doing a reset here, it's going to reset our font automatically to the both, so we don't need to go and set the font. All we care about is setting the text. So I'm going to say set text, and I'm just going to go drag this down here. I'm going to move this a little bit and get this in nice tight. And then I'm just going to take the text action for the tap and tie that into there. Hold, it's just going to be the same that we did up there. So I'm going to just say set text again. Connect the dots. I'm just going to move this up. So I'm also going to need to say set visibility. So I'm just going to run that there. And again, this is going to be testable. Then I'm going to run that. And then I'm also going to hit testable. Set visibility. Hit testable. All right. And then here again, I'm just going to go copy this for now. Hook that into there and hook that into there, and that should set everything else, set it all up. So now we've just defined our default label message to our user. So we bring back this again. So that hold to sit in key, hold to sit, and the put in inventory, or everything around that E key, that's what it's going to look like when it comes on screen. So there we go. That's what we've done. So the next widget is going to be the next widget is actually going to be the pickup widget. So this is going to be our custom widget, or our specialized widget for pickup items. So again, user interface, widget blueprint, and again, this is just going to be another default user widget. WBC. Pickup items. Hit save. And then I'm just going to open this up. Save. All right, so let's go ahead and define the UI layout for our pickup items. So again, I'm going to use a size box. And the size box for this one is going to be 400 by 800. So we'll just go ahead and define that. Oops. No, by 80, not 400 by 800. So 400 by 80. Going to hit compile. We don't need to make this a variable since it's static. And I'm just going to go and say desired on screen. So that's what it's going to look like. Okay, hit compile, save. All right, next I'm going to put a canvas panel in there. There it is. And then after that, I'm going to put a background blur. There it is. And set that strength to 5. All right. And then after that, I'm going to put a vertical box in. Put that underneath the background blur. There it is. And our vertical box is just going to be anchored there. And then within the vertical box, I'm going to add a horizontal box. And then within the horizontal box, we're just going to go ahead and add 2 text and a spacer. So text block 1, and I'm going to keep these, let me just double check my solution. I'm going to make these bold. I'm going to make these 18 as far as the size, bold. And this one is going to be, I'm going to make this a variable, so it's going to be txt. I think this one was what, value. So how much the item costs. And then the next one is going to be, then I'm going to put a spacer. And again on the X, I'm going to put on the X of the spacer, I'm going to put 5 just to kind of make it look nice and neat. Save. And then I'm going to add the other text block. And again, this is going to be 19. And I'm going to hit the check mark. And wait. And hit compile, save. Alright, so now that we've got those, just make sure everything looks okay. Alright, let's just double check. So here I'm going to change this to fill, and I'm going to change this one to fill. Space is set to auto. I'm just trying to oh, that's right, vertical box. Let's go ahead and size the vertical box. So I'm going to set our vertical box to, set this to 400. Okay, that spaces it out. And I'm going to set this to 80 down there, so it's the same size as the size box that's going to be in. Alright, so that's spaced that out nicely. And then we just need to have our action keys. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just minimize the horizontal box, and we're going to add a spacer to the vertical box. And we'll just leave, I'm going to put that as 5. And then all we need to do here, since we've already created that widget once, we don't need to create it again. We're just going to go ahead and just drag this guy down and drag it into the horizontal box, no, vertical box right there. And that puts that right where we want it to be, at the bottom. So then I'm going to take the background blur, and I'm just going to resize this. So we'll make that 400. And I'm actually going to bring this down to have it touch there, since we already have a blur action happening in the in this component. We don't need to go and blur the whole thing. So I'm just going to blur the piece that we're adding to it. Alright, and that should be all we need to do here. Let's just make sure that that's a variable. Yes. Let's make sure our text is a variable, our hold is a variable. Yep. Alright, so now let's go ahead and create the plumbing on the other side in the event graph. And so for this one, all we need to do is we don't need this. We just need a custom event. And this is going to be set. I'm going to call that set interaction action, and I'm just going to add 2 variables to this. So the first one is going to be our row. And again, that's going to be using our row structure. And then the second one is going to be our action data. And that is going to be using our data transfer object. There it is, interaction data. So save, compile. Okay, so in order to build out this widget, we're going to go ahead and get the subcomponent that we already defined over here. So we're going to get that subcomponent, and all we're going to do is we're going to say set interaction action, connect that, and we're just going to pass the row into there. And then as far as the other text values for value and weights, I'm just going to go grab weights. I'm going to say get, and I'm going to say set text. I'm going to connect that to there, like that. And we're going to say set value. We're just going to grab this one. Nope, quit. Set text. And hook that to there. And then we just need the data that we want to add into there. And we're getting that information off the data transfer object. So I'm going to take this. We're going to go ahead and break that. So we'll break it. And let's see, we don't need type, display text, and action key this time. We don't need that. All we need is the weight and the value. So we'll just set that to there. I'm going to go ahead and pull the value off here, and I'm going to say format text. And here I'm just going to say type value, colon, curly braces, and I'm just going to put a V in there. And then we're just going to do the same here. Format text. And this is going to be weight, curly braces, and a W. So weight connects to weight. Value connects to value. And that is all I think we need to do there. So pretty simple. We're just, we already have this component here. We're just going to add the additional information here, and that sets that widget. So these are all of our subcomponents. So let's go ahead and actually make the interaction messaging widget. So to do that, we're just going to come back to our editor under UI interactions. And I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to user interface again, go to blueprint widget. Now, instead of using this widget, we created a custom widget, which is being used by our code. So that custom widget is right here. So you can either, so let's type core, under user widget, there's our custom interaction user widget. We're just going to call that. I'm going to hit select. And I'm just going to, and we're just going to name it that interaction widget. I'm going to hit save. All right, so let's go ahead and design the actual interaction widget. So I'm going to pull that up. So once you created that, just make sure that once you created your widget that its parent class is core interaction user widget. If it isn't, you can go ahead and go to File and say Reparent Blueprint and reparent it to the core interaction widget if you made a mistake. But for this demo, we need and for this widget to work with our interaction system, we need this core interaction user widget class. So from here, again, it should be pretty simple at this point. We're just going to go ahead and get a canvas panel, drop that in there. We're not going to do anything with the canvas panel. Then I'm going to create a vertical box, and we're going to drag the vertical box onto the canvas panel. And then on the vertical box, I'm going to use a border. Drop that into the vertical box. So there's our border. And I'm just going to keep it white. Autofill. I think all of the standard stuff can be there. And then in the border, I'm going to then add a text. Drop that there, so that widens that up. And let's see. Actually, let's go back to the vertical box real quick. Sorry. Let's go ahead and make my vertical. We're going to go ahead and make this vertical box 400 by 400. So size 400, and I'm going to make this 400. So the borders are going to auto to the text. Of course, our white on white isn't really helpful for our text. So now we're going to move back to the text block. I'm going to make this a variable. I'm going to say txt name. So this is going to be the name of what we're looking at. And here I'm just going to go ahead and say just make this black. So 000, hit OK. There it is. And that looks good. So right now it's set to the upper left corner. I don't really want it on the upper left corner. So let's go back to the vertical box, and I'm going to go to anchors. I'm going to say shift, and I'm going to use the left side left anchor slot, and I'm going to then say control left anchor, and that's going to just pop that right there. And then I'm just going to, let's just say, physically move it. Nah, we'll physically move it to, how about there? I think that looks good. Save. We'll try that for now. All right, so now that we've got the vertical boxes and we've got that nice border, now we just need to add the widgets in here. So to do that, all we need to do is go back to our vertical box, and we'll go and add our two widgets. So we've got the default. I'm going to add that to the vertical box. Nope, add it to the vertical box. And we need the pickup items as well. And add that to the vertical box. So those two widgets are there. As you can see, they're added. I'm going to hit compile and save. But I don't want these things to actually display when we, on this vertical box. And so we'll configure this when we get to the graph. So we'll come to the event graph now. And let's go ahead. I'm going to take away the event construct, and I'm going to take away the event tick. So on event construct, let's go ahead and first off, I'm going to go ahead and create a custom action, our custom event. Add custom event, and I'm going to rename this custom event. Since that's closed there, I'm just going to go here and just say reset UI. And when we reset the UI, I'm just going to take both of our subcomponents here and here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to say set visibility. And I'm just going to set these to collapse. All right. So I've set those to collapse. So that's on our reset, and there I'm going to just call, and I'm just going to call reset. There it is. And I'm doing this on the pre-construct, so once it's on the pre-construct, if I come back to the designer now, they're all collapsed. So that's the default state that we want. So, all right. So now that we've got these two defined, so when we were creating our widget, let's go back to what we were doing in part 1. I'm going to bring this up. We created the concept of these blueprint native events. And these are, again, these are functions that I call from the C++. So if I go here and I go to definition, you can see that we've got show interaction. We're going to call it here, and then we're going to call the hide one here. And then, yeah, so those are the native events. We're calling them from C++, but we want them to execute on the blueprint that is inheriting from this class. And so in order to do that, we created these blueprint native events. And so this is where we're actually going to use them. So we're going to come back here, and here I'm just going to say event hide, and there's the hide event. And while I'm here, I'm just going to go grab the show event too. And these map directly to those native events that we created in the C++. And so let's go ahead and populate this. So on a hide event, it's just a reset UI. And that's there. And then on the show event, this is where we actually want to go ahead and figure out which of those sub-widgets we want to use. So first thing, again, we'll do a reset. And then we're also going to need the get. We want to get. So I'm going to say get in. There it is. Get the interaction data. So here's this variable, and this variable is being defined not in the blueprint but in the C++. So again, I come back here, there it is. So again, when our C++ calls this function, it's going to send in this, which is going to then set that, which is then going to be then used by our blueprint up here. And then I'm just going to say break. All right, and we only are interested in this widget. We're only interested in the first three. So weight and value, I'm just going to hide those. And this is going to decide which of those sub-widgets we're going to call. So I'm just going to push that up there. So working from the bottom up, so this is our action key. This is a reference to our data table. So over here, action key will map to our row name here. So to do that, we're just going to go and create a data table reference. So we're going to say get data table row, and there it is, get data table row. We want the utility. We're going to select the table, and there is our widget interaction table. So that table there's the table, and all we're going to do is we're just going to connect the action to that. Hit save. So whatever value is in here, it will come out here, and if it can find the row, it will output it here, and if it doesn't find the row, well, it's just going to come out there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is the text name. So I'm just going to drag that variable off there, and I'm just going to say set text, and we want the function. So if we find the row, we can find this, and all it is display text. So we're going to hook that to there, put a little reroute node. All right, And then lastly, we want the type. So I'm going to drag this off and I'm going to say, just type in switch so we can find the switch structure. And we're going to hook that into here. And I'm going to put a reroute node. Hit save. All right. So now, once we're here, we can determine which of these sub-widgets we want to call. So if it's none, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to call a widget. We could just display the text of what we're looking at, but there's no interaction in there. But otherwise, if we have an interaction, if it's a default interaction, we're going to just use the default only. So I'm going to grab this, and then off here, we're just going to say set interaction action. I'm going to call that. I'm going to run that and put that there. And we're just going to go grab the row that we found and just park it in there. And then off here, we're just going to then say set visibility. And again, we will make this no hit, not hit. And then off there, we're also going to set the visibility of this widget. And this will be, again, set to that. And I'm just going to keep this one down here because we're going to do the same thing off here. So let's go get the pickup item sub-widget. And we'll say set. There it is, set interaction. I'm going to hook that to there on that execution path. And this one, we're going to put the row into the interaction row. And then I'm just going to go copy this. And we're just going to then pass in our interaction data, our data transfer object, so that it can then use the value and weight in its display. I'm going to say set visibility. And again, hit testable. And then we're going to hook that into there. And that should do it for all of our widgets. So we went ahead and created this is our master widget, and then these are the children, our child widgets, which will show up in there based on that decision that we're making from the interaction data transfer object that's getting passed in. So those are all the pieces for the widget. And this is going to do it for part 2 of this video. This has definitely been a long one. So in part 3, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these UI widgets and all of the code that we did in part 1, and we will then tie them all together in the context of, into our character actor, and then we'll go ahead and create some interactable actors. We'll create some chairs that we can interact with to kind of show how this system is working. And so that's what we'll do in part 3. So once again, if you like what I'm doing, feel free to like and share my videos, as well as subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in part 3. Cheers. Have a good day.